can whisper.
And welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Moossy.
And our guest today is a very interesting person who did an amazing thing in the last few weeks. So we're going to talk about what she did. Her name is Kym Platt, and she is a activist, a reporter, keeper of a blog.
Blogger.
We'll talk about your blog.
Advice giver.
And we met actually just a few days ago at Vesta's, because Vesta was our guest last week.
That's right.
Vesta's
we went
amazing.
to Vesta's opening.
Yes.
And we were discussing the TV show with you, and we found out about that amazing thing that you did on telephone. On the telephone, you actually got to speak through BBC.
Yes, I did.
With the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's
Yes.
right behind us. That's why you see
Jesse.
the Reverend Jesse Jackson's picture behind us. And just below us, you can see our phone number.
So call us up.
You can call us up and ask questions or make comments that are germane to the issue.
You can ask advice, because Kym's website is called askthisblackwoman.com.
That's right.
And she takes questions there at the website, and tonight she's going to take questions here on the show.
I will.
Okay, and so first, Kym, why don't you tell us exactly what happened and what question you asked Reverend Jesse Jackson the other day?
It was actually on September 1st. I was up one morning very early, and I sent in a question to the BBC. They were interviewing Jesse Jackson about his negotiating the release of the Israeli soldiers who were arrested by Hezbollah. And I sent in a question through their comments, that I asked, why are you in the Middle East negotiating the release of Israeli soldiers when your own people, African Americans, are dying of AIDS at rates comparable to that on the African continent? And about an hour later, the producer from the BBC show called me and asked me to ask the question to Jesse Jackson on air.
Live on the air.
Live on air.
Yes. So what was the exact question you asked him? As best as you can remember.
As best as I can remember, it went something like this. I said, you are negotiating the release of the Israeli soldiers in the Middle East while African Americans are facing our biggest enemy, AIDS, here in the United States. And even earlier on the segment, you mentioned AIDS in Africa instead of AIDS in the United States as it relates to African Americans. What policies will you create to help save African American lives? And then I challenged Jesse Jackson to take a public AIDS test with me in Harlem.
Mm-hmm. And what did he answer to that question?
Well, he began actually to talk about his presidential campaign in 1984, which I found offensive. And
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was 22 years. And the host of the BBC show asked Jesse, he said, will you take the AIDS test with Kym? And Jesse began to mention that, in fact, he had organized public HIV tests in the past, and he didn't give a straight answer, and so I began to tell Jesse that his silence was killing us, and that, in fact, his inaction in this HIV crisis in the Black America is a betrayal to African Americans. Again, the host asked if he would take the test, and he agreed to take the test and have his staff at the New York City branch of Rainbow Push Coalition organize it with me.
And did you hear back from them?
I've not heard back. I've left messages with Andrew Carr, the executive director of Rainbow Push in New York City, and I've sent emails. I've also talked to the staff at the Chicago headquarters, and I have yet to hear back.
So there's no date that's been set?
There's no date that has been set.
Mm-hmm. Why is it so important for a prominent figure? And we're talking about a prominent figure because he's already had an AIDS test. He's done this in other locales. Why is it so important to do this here in New York City, and particularly in Harlem?
Well, Harlem is a historic Black community, and HIV and AIDS is affecting the Black community in ways that is destroying the Black community. I mean, 68% of newly infected women newly infected with HIV are Black women. The statistics go on, and
I can read a few.
Yes,
If I can
please.
Make a moment, because I got an article. It's San Francisco Chronicle, but there's many places where you can read this information. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention contends that at least 25% of the 1.2 million Americans living with HIV are not aware of it. That's in total, 25% of any person,
group,
any group.
Right.
A major reason for an estimated 40,000 people in the United States are newly infected each year. That's unbelievable when you think how far we've allegedly come.
Right.
That in the United States, in general, 40,000 people a year are infected with HIV. African Americans are bearing the brunt of the new infection. Blacks represent 13% of the United States population, but African American women accounted for 67% of new U.S. AIDS diagnoses in 2004. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, AIDS is the leading cause of death for Black women in the United States ages 25 to 44. And here's another interesting and frightening statistic that everybody should know, all the young people too. Although 17% of the U.S. teen population is Black, African Americans accounted for 70% of HIV infections among that age group in 2004. So this is something that's striking teenagers as well as women, young women.
Kym, what got you interested in this issue? Like, how did you start to find out about this and explore what's happening right now?
Well, I've always been an activist in the gay and lesbian community, and I've always been aware of HIV and AIDS issues. I have friends who are HIV positive and friends who have died of AIDS. But I began my blog in early August, and I was recently watching, it was actually the last week of August, I was watching Nightline. And Nightline did a segment on the AIDS crisis in Black America, and Terry Moran was the interviewer, and he interviewed Jesse Jackson, and Jesse Jackson did not know anything about HIV and AIDS. In fact, he only mentioned AIDS in Africa, and he blamed George Bush for the AIDS crisis in Black America, which I found offensive. And so I've just began to, on my blog, talk about it.
And explore the issues.
And explore the issue. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and critically. And I found that not a lot was happening in the Black community. And not a lot of people knew really what was going on. And so I've sort of made it a prominent cause on my blog.
Mm-hmm. And tell us, what would you like to see happen out of Jesse Jackson's visit to Harlem in order to take an AIDS test? What could that do? What could we do in the community here in New York? And that's primarily who's watching this program right now are folks who live in Manhattan.
Right, is it for the inspiration of it that you think it would be effective for him to do that, or do you think it...
We're speaking to the audience right now, Manhattan audience. What should we be doing? What needs to be done?
Well, I think a couple things need to happen. Jesse Jackson's really just a symbol. He's also a symbol of the problem of the failure of Black leadership. No prominent Black leader in the last 25 years has made AIDS an issue. And he's not come forth. He has not been prominent. We pretty much in the African American community have very few leaders right now at all, let alone talking about HIV and AIDS. So it would be good if he could come out and champion. But I think also what needs to happen is more African Americans need to take leadership roles, and we really need to work on the issues in our community that force us to be silent about HIV and AIDS, because that silence is actually killing us.
What is happening? Because we're talking here about something new. It's not. In the past, we had needles, and there's needle exchange on the Lower East Side, for example. Every day I see people out there. It's sort of a battle that's been won in New York, at least, where there is an effective needle exchange. We had in the gay community. I mean, that was always a place where AIDS was a threat. And folks, there has been education there, and there's backsliding. At least what I read in the Village Voice, that there are meth and different things are coming in that are undermining advances that have been made. But at least we're aware that that's a place where people have to do outreach.
Right.
Now we're talking about heterosexual young women 25 years after the AIDS crisis began. What is happening in the community that young women haven't been getting the message, or are they being taken advantage of? What's happening in the community right now? And without getting into the whole, Bill Cosby thing about people, hanging out and not doing their homework or whatever.
I just want to, before you answer, I just want to remind everybody that you can call us up. It's 212-757-1538.
Right.
And we're here with Kym Platt from AskThisBlackWoman.com.
Right. And we're talking about black leaders in general on this issue, so folks want to talk about Bill Cosby because he's almost a more controversial figure. If you can find a way to keep it on track, go right ahead.
I think part of the problem, first of all, high incarceration rates. Generally, prison is a breeding ground for HIV and AIDS. Prisoners aren't given free condoms or condoms at all. There's shame around how one becomes infected. And there's shame and silence in the African American community regarding sex and sexual behavior. Believe it or not, the African American community is very conservative, and
Well, even over homosexuality in general.
absolutely homosexuality and homophobia keeps men who have had sexual interaction with another man. It keeps them closeted, and it keeps them from telling their female partners that they may have engaged in something that put them at risk. And that silence then goes out and breeds, more HIV
Oh, we're
cases.
getting some phone calls.
Isn't that, but I want to take the call, but isn't that why you're focusing in a sense on a religious leader?
Yes, absolutely.
He's a secular leader also, but he's also a religious leader.
Absolutely.
And because it's speaking to religion has been a great thing in the African American community,
Yes.
but like in all communities.
And let's talk about your website.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us your website. How can people find out more information?
My website is www.askthisblackwoman.com, and it's political commentary and cultural criticism from a black woman.
And you've been give us an example of some of the posts on your site recently. I took a look; it was very interesting. What are some of the issues that you've been looking at?
I get a lot of questions. Let me see. The latest one was, should you use American Apparel clothing? A friend is.
So they're not all racially based.
It's not all racially based. But I definitely put a black woman's perspective in the answers.
Why American Apparel? Because that's.
They're somewhat controversial because of their ads, and the head of American Apparel, Doug Charney, is controversial, and he's been being sued for sexual harassment and whatnot.
But doesn't he brag that he's had sex with a lot of the girls?
Yeah, his employees, right?
Oh, he brags about it.
Yeah.
I see. So that sets a bad example.
Consensual sex.
Yeah.
He's
Consensual.
bragging
But still, it sets a bad
Right,
example
right.
for the situation for most people.
Right,
in
absolutely.
It's not all the Playboy Mansion.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even if a lot of people with the shame factor, doesn't it? Because with anonymity, you can rise above the shame.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Right. They
It's
don't
really
seem to be
interesting.
ashamed.
Oh, not at all.
Well, however, it's even though drugs can keep people alive for a lot longer than they have in the past, has this had sort of, in your work, in your investigations, we're talking about an effect of people like figuring, oh, so what, having a more laissez-faire attitude because now
They're not going to die.
It's been cured or they're not going to die.
Right. I think that some of the drugs, what it does is takes away the face of AIDS. And we're dealing with people who look very healthy, who are actually not. So yeah, it's not like the late 80s, early 90s when you saw people who were visibly sick.
What do you think about, because one of the things I noticed, I was reading about Jesse Jackson when he was speaking in Toronto, he was very critical of what's going on in South Africa, saying that the using the traditional healing and not using the modern drugs was somehow this is not a good idea. Yeah, I worked with Gary Knoll. I don't know if you're familiar with him, and he's written quite a few books where he's questioned the whole idea of HIV as the cause of AIDS. He's been very supportive of that. And I know that's a pretty controversial point of view. But folks who take that point of view are also pointing out the fact that the medical establishment, for example, in the court, in the sense of folks taking these drugs, that they're really not curing people; they're just keeping people alive.
Right.
Towards the time when
But
the drugs
that's
no longer
big.
work. It's a big thing, but at the
it's
same
a
time,
huge step.
right.
You can't really
They haven't found a
diminish
cure,
that.
any sort of cure for what they're calling the
Right.
HIV infection.
No.
But they maintain it like a chronic disease,
Right,
which is an
right.
enormous step from people dying. I mean, let's face it.
Well, it's improving the quality of their life.
Right.
Yeah.
And extending the length
Right.
quite substantially for a lot of people.
So we know that that's
interesting.
happening. That's the evidence that's on one hand, and on the other. So you agree basically that they took the wrong path in South Africa.
I do agree that they took the wrong path. I think that it would be good for them to take a path that includes traditional healing with the antiretroviral drugs.
Sure.
But what seems to be happening is that they're only focusing on the traditional healing with the beetroot and the garlic and whatnot. And it's clearly, those methods are clearly not saving lives or improving the quality of folks' lives.
Right. So actually, whatever the cause of AIDS, whether these scientific arguments are right or wrong, you have to look at what's helping people. For Kym Platt,
Right, absolutely.
Let's get back to talking a little bit about your conversation with Jesse Jackson.
Have you met him before, or was that the first time you ever spoke with him?
No, I shook his hand. He was out at the NYU protest, the grad students, and I walked up to him and I shook his hand. He was very gracious, charismatic, very
Right.
tall.
Do you think that he was giving you the brush off?
Yeah, I think he's afraid. I think he's afraid, as most black leaders who are no longer relevant, of opening something up that they cannot handle.
Right.
And I think that's why we really need to push for new leadership in the black community.
So where do you think you can
That's
find
interesting what you
new
just said.
leadership?
Yeah.
Like, where would you look to find new leaders for the community?
Well, there are some new leaders. Cory Booker, Mayor of Newark. You have Barack Obama.
Another
And-
very charismatic,
And he took his
younger
test with his wife
person.
in
Yes.
Nairobi, right?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to see him take it in Chicago. I think that would be really, really great. And then Majora Carter for Sustainable South Bronx. She's doing a lot up there. I think that we in the black community, we have a lot of talented, smart, energetic folks. But I think what we do is we allow sort of these iconic leaders of the civil rights era to stay in the positions that they are in. It's almost idol worship when we really need
Right.
to we need to have younger leadership step up and make changes that these folks aren't doing.
That's interesting that you should say that. That's really, it's sort of deep, that the folks, what time and at what point in a struggle, how do the veterans relate to the new young blood? Because this is I'm seeing in a lot of institutions where, folks from past struggles are holding on to the politics of
Right.
current movements.
Rather than fostering the next
Right.
generation, almost in fear of someone taking
Absolutely.
over for them.
The
Or,
fear is almost palatable in
Yes,
some of the movements
absolutely.
I've worked in.
and yet, what's a better legacy than to bring more people along? So I think that it's a good mission to try to discover and cultivate new leadership.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you think it's a matter of how do you get, or do we go around these institutions? Do you go around the NAACP, and Operation Rainbow, and PUSH, and Operation PUSH Rainbow Coalition? And
Yeah, do you need new institutions or just new leadership within the existing institutions? And that's another question.
I think that, and this may be controversial, that organizations like the NAACP really have outlived their usefulness. I would like to see new institutions created, new organizations created, but if we had folks stepping into the leadership roles within those organizations, that would certainly be refreshing and desired.
And do you think there'll be like a grassroots? So you're trying to get sort of a grassroots?
I would love to see young African Americans organize in the streets. You know, I work with some Filipino organizers from this group called Ugnayan, and just you know, socializing with them and going to some of their events and like feeling the energy that they have for the issues that affect their community. I really like. I would like to inspire folks to to organize in a grassroots way, like Ugnayan.
Well, it's certainly exhilarating.
It
Like
is
you said, there's a
exhilarating.
palpable energy to participating in that kind of upward movement.
Yes.
That's really worth participating in.
It's and there's nothing else really to participate. There's nothing else, you know, going on, and there certainly are plenty of issues that we could organize around. So I guess we're sort of like at the beginning of a movement when.
Now, is there a way for people to contact you on the website?
Sure. People can send me an email at help@askthisblackwoman.com.
Okay. And let's. Oh, we had a call before. I was
We
gonna-
do.
We'll try it.
Got 'em on
Oh,
both
here we go.
You're on.
Hello?
You're on.
Hello?
Guess not.
I feel
We're
so flattered.
relentless.
You're on.
Hello?
Yeah, I wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You hung up on
That's
us.
probably the only
I
legitimate.
know, and I actually hung up on the only legitimate caller, 212-757-1538. Call me
Your
back.
hand's moving too fast.
All right,
Hello? That's a sound effects
The
guy.
sound effects guy. Oh, well, you know,
That's
this is
the
an important
bestiality
issue, but I can
guy.
understand,
Yes.
I can understand the difficulty in getting people to deal with something as important as this. As you said, the shame factor runs very deep, and,
Right.
you know,
It
we
is
know
hard
that-
to talk about illness in general.
Yes.
It
is.
really
I mean, it's
is.
a double whammo because it's sex and illness both, for the and or drug addiction or
And blame,
blame.
perhaps.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
blame going around, right? And who did this? Who's responsible?
Right.
Nobody says that when you get a cold. Nobody says that
No.
when you get cancer.
No.
You know that it's somebody. Oh, well, sometimes people say you can't say it's your own fault even if you smoke cigarettes, because the vast majority of people who smoke
Right.
cigarettes don't get cancer. You know, and people who never touch a cigarette in their lives get lung cancer every day. So you can't really say that that anybody's to blame for an illness they've got. That's the nature of illness. You know, it has a mind of its own and a biography of its own, as we've seen with AIDS. So that makes it.
Now let's review your contact information. If
Yeah.
people want to see your blog, that's at askthisblackwoman.com.
Yes, it is.
And if they want to communicate with you or ask a question, that's at help@askthisblackwoman.com.
You got it. You got it. I'm also on MySpace.
Oh,
Yeah.
be a
Black
friend.
woman. Yes.
Okay, let's give it another shot. You're on.
Hello? Hello?
I guess I
Nobody's
forgot us.
home.
You're on.
Hello?
You got a minute.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi.
You're on.
Hi, I just wanted to say that, am I on the air?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
Okay, well, I think that she's absolutely right when she says that we need to look for new leaders. And I think that we can start looking to our youth and schools and maybe some existing organizations who have the benefit of many different diverse groups in mind.
Absolutely.
That's about it. And I
Right.
work in a school, so I see kids who have great ideas, and they're really looking for ways to an outlet and for someone to listen to them. And I think that if they have the right encouragement, can be excellent leaders of our future.
All right.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, we're about to wrap up.
Yeah.
So this has been Kym Platt from
Yes.
askthisblackwoman.com.
Thanks for having me.
I'm
And
Miss
thank you.
Joan Moossy.
And we'll see you next week. Take care. And we have half a minute. So what do we want to say in that half a minute? We
Jesse, call me. Email me.
Call Kym
Right.
back.
Right, Jesse, let's put a call. We put your picture up. I know you like to see your picture on television. We have mentioned your name many times. We give you all this free publicity. Now we need you to come and do something for us here in New York City.
Right.
Come up to Harlem, get an AIDS test, let them
See you
talk, give
next
us a
week,
call.
everybody.
All right.
All right, that's it. Bingo.
Great. That was a great ending.
That's a great
Now we got a good call here.
Yeah.